country is full. Can't take you anymore, I'm sorry. Can't happen. So turn around. That's the way it is.
People look at us like we're from another planet, but we're really not. We're just from right over the fence.
Come to America, live the life of the free, live a life that you can't have over there. We can't just make people evil who are not all evil.
The American dream is disappearing because we're giving it away. I don't think the wall is big enough. I don't think it's tall enough. I don't think it's strong enough. I think I need a bigger, better wall.
The southern border of the United States runs for more than 3,000 kilometers from the Pacific Ocean to the Gulf of Mexico. Donald Trump says an invasion of undocumented migrants trying to cross it into the US has created a crisis that only a border wall can resolve. It's become the defining issue of his presidency. But what is life like in the dozens of towns that lie along the border? And how is the great immigration debate altering their character? Nearly 12 million people live along the US-Mexico border, around 35,000 of them in Calexico, California. We're down here by this intimidating-looking fence. There's not much room for doubt that we're on the boundary between two separate countries, Mexico over there and the United States here. But these two towns don't really look and feel very much different. And the people say they feel they're part of the same community. And that's a story you hear across much of the southern border.
I love it, to be honest with you. I have family in Mexicali. So growing up as a kid, you know, it was going there for the summer, you know, 3 months out of the year. On a weekly basis that I cross over to Mexicali to visit family. And
so you don't see a big difference between being here and over there?
Not really.
Same place for you?
Same place, yeah. I mean, you see the same faces in a way. You see the same faces here and there, so.
What's it like in Mexico today?
It's really good.
Yeah, it's good?
It's more nice people here. Very warm.
Nice to meet you. Bye-bye.
Have a nice day.
Thank you. The westernmost point of the border is San Diego. On the other side is the Mexican city of Tijuana. Tell me about the situation with the fences here.
Yeah, this is part of the triple fence strategy, or 3 walls. The idea being if migrants get across one wall, they're in between the first and second. They get across the second one, they're stuck between second and third. For us, that's also part of the daily life here, right? On the one hand, yes, there's this openness, this tolerance for ambiguity, this fluidity, this interdependency between the two communities, and at some level, even just a question of necessity and cost of living. But on the other hand, it's underpinned by a dynamic of tension and constantly being on guard for Border Patrol harassing us irrespective of our status.
200 kilometers further east is the town of Brawley. Today there's a festival here. Eighty 80% of the town's residents are of Hispanic origin.
Are you having a good time, sir? You sure look like it. You got a big smile. That's nice.
But this is America.
We love it here. We've been here for, I lived here for over 70 years. My wife has about 60 years living here. So we wouldn't change it for the world. We like it.
What do you like about being on the border?
We're more within our culture. You know, I think if we moved to a bigger city further away, we'd run into different cultures that we would feel uncomfortable. But here we feel at home because we eat tacos, chile sauce, and churritos.
But do you feel there's, in a way, no difference between the towns on this side and the towns on the other side of the border?
They share the same culture because there are people from the other side. They come to live on this side, so they bring their culture, and it's just like Mexico.
The rest of America, they talk about it on political talk shows. We live it daily. We know people from Mexico, from Honduras, from Guatemala. They pass through here, they live here, they contribute here, and they do wrong sometimes, but we know they're just like us.
But even here in this apparently most integrated of communities, there's increasing disquiet over the perceived threat from the other side of the border.
I don't think it's fair for them just to coming over and, being in the U.S., without going through the rules and regs that most people do, So no, I don't feel like we should be sharing with them. We could help them a little, but not the whole continent, That's what I think.
I only look illegal. We get stereotyped. People look at us like we're from another planet, but we're really not. We're just from right over the other fence. So it's like, I don't know why that's such a hostility. So
When Donald Trump talks about a crisis and drugs and crime coming over the border, what do you say to that?
Oh, of course, we're all gonna get offended. We're all gonna get angry. We're gonna feel belittled. But that's just the way it is. How everybody says, everybody's thinking it. He's just saying it.
Has the character of Brawley changed?
Has it changed? I would say, unfortunately, yes, in that many people are guarded against new people coming in, that they don't know their families, where they're from, like in the old days. Many of us grew up together and we knew the families, their fathers and their grandfathers. Now we don't know these people, but they're here to contribute. They're not rising the crime more than our own natural-born residents are. And issues that they face of drugs and economic crisis, that's across the border, that's across America, that's across generations. It's nothing new.
We had 2 back-to-back homicide. Reason to believe it was the same suspect.
Detective Daniel Schleier has been on the Brawley beat for more than a decade.
The night of the shooting, they graffitied their gang monikers and their gang names. And the rival gang is Chicali, which comes from Mexicali. Station 9, Adam 3.
Go ahead.
Show me 10-6, South Alley of 300 a.m.
He says cross-border violence is making his job harder than it's ever been.
Nowadays it's a lot more violent. They don't have any respect. There's no code anymore. It is tied to the Mexican mafia. It's like a complete organization that we have to fight. There are soldiers, there's sergeants and lieutenants, and they're taxing people and using older people, grandmas, to tie the drugs on, children. Mules, exactly.
Do you think if the border was closed, this murder might not have happened?
Okay, in this very instance, it actually it's true, because one of the victims shouldn't have been here, and he actually crossed during the shutdown.
It's a little of an adrenaline rush. Before they put the fence up, we could ride into Mexico, and now that they've got the fence up, we can't. But we've still got plenty of dunes here.
For Scott Long, the border is a playground. But he also views it as a potential threat to the American way of life.
They used to come through here, you know, the illegals smuggling, and they'd hide in people's trailers, in their campers, try to take something if they could to get to that highway. And now that they've got the fence, it's a little safer probably.
His friends at the sand dunes support the solution proposed by their president.
I don't think the wall's big enough. I don't think it's tall enough. I don't think it's strong enough. I think we need a bigger, better wall.
Why?
Why? I'm 58 years old. I'm an American. I was born in America. My dad fought in the wars. My son is in our military. My husband works hard. Why does my husband have to go and spend 10 hours a day in the blazing sun when other people can just waltz into this country to get free health care, free food, free housing, free everything on the sweat of my husband's back? I don't like it. I want a bigger wall. It's unfortunate that these other third world countries or whatever, it's unfortunate that they are struggling the way they are and that they all want part of the American dream. But the American dream is disappearing because we're giving it away.
He's on the north side. I lost him before he got there. He might have went off the road right over here though. I'm sorry, not Montgomery, William Parker.
Since October 2018, well over 500,000 undocumented migrants have been apprehended trying to cross into the US. Most of them are sent straight back to Mexico while their asylum applications are processed. It hasn't stopped the human flow from Central America. People who say they're leaving behind hardship and the threat of violence. And now Mexico's border towns are feeling the strain. In Tijuana, every migrant shelter is full. And concerns are growing.
Where you have over 100 people packed into such a small space, a lot of different communicable diseases spread a lot easier. For example, we see a lot of lice, a lot of scabies. In fact, one of the shelters we went to actually had an outbreak of mumps. But because the shelters are overflowed, the resources for the Secretary of Health are often inundated.
But despite the setbacks, most migrants are determined to fulfill their dream of reaching the US. Karina Rivera has come from Honduras with her 4-month-old daughter, Sudia.
The situation in my country is very, very hard, and we have serious problems. I decided to cross into the United States, whatever it takes for the sake of my child. In Honduras, there is no opportunity, there are no jobs, and there's a lot of insecurity.
Do you realize how difficult it will be to get into the United States?
Yes, we know it's very difficult, but we want to try anyway.
Fidel Roman has tried several times already. He's been deported on each occasion, but is desperate to rejoin his wife and children who are in San Diego.
It is hard, it's dangerous. I almost lose my life like the 7th time I tried it. On the 4th, I almost lose life. Look, 1, 2, 3, and like this, I got stuck in the wire cable.
That's in the wire?
Yeah, on the fence, on the border. I tried to jump. When the immigration, the border patrol was chasing me over here, and then I jumped, and then I stuck like my look, I got this fresh cut right here. I got my life over there. I don't have life in here, like I'm just struggling.
In the heart of California's Imperial Valley, behind a carefully manicured cemetery, is another burial ground, hidden from view. It's the final resting place for many of the migrants who never fulfilled their dreams, the ones who died crossing the border. They haven't been completely forgotten.
Let us go in peace now to honor our beloved dead.
Every few weeks, the charity Border Angels arranges a service for them.
I think this is really tragic because here, these are people like you and I, and the graves that are marked, you know, John Doe, Jane Doe, Baby Doe. It's sad that they have no name, and so that we can come and remember them.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Peter, James, and John went up on the mountain to pray. And while he was praying, his face was changed in appearance, and his clothing became dazzling white. And I pray that this will be a source of grace and blessing, not just his.
According to U.S. Customs and Border Protection, more than 7,000 people have died attempting to cross the border since 1998.
The peace of the Lord be with you always. And even as you shared the
Border Angels believe the true figure is over 10,000.
If it wasn't for us coming out here and doing these ceremonies, there really is no respect in placing these bodies out here amongst all this dirt. There's no grass, there's no headstones. Sadly, these crosses, these stones will be taken down again. We need to stand up to that type of a situation because love is an action, not just a word.
There are no longer any burials here. Those who die crossing now are cremated and their ashes disposed of at sea. But still they come, and those not sent straight back pose a challenge for their reluctant hosts. Yuma sits in the southwesternmost part of Arizona on the Colorado River. Agriculture here relies on workers from Mexico. But the town has been struggling to cope with the number of migrants being released from custody onto the streets, sometimes more than 100 at a time. The mayor had to declare a state of emergency.
This is a national, international, if you would, situation, and our local community can't bear the financial and resource burden that it takes, even the larger communities that are having issue. But the size of our community just is overburdened, and we cannot sustain this for any length of time. Even if the numbers stayed at capacity, it would be a problem. But since they've already exceeded our capacity, it's just an unattainable situation.
So we have, make sure we have vegetables and fruit, pasta sauce, some protein.
Staff at the local food bank are doing what they can.
Being in a border town here, I think it's something that we hear about all the time. It's just that this time it's elevated quite a much bigger scale. So it is a problem here. It has been for years.
What's the problem exactly?
I think just there's a lot of people coming trying to get into the United States here. And they've traveled very far and they've made it here to the border. And now they've, seeking asylum. And now that they're here, we've got to do something with these families. We can't just leave them homeless on the streets.
But there are signs that an increasing number of migrants might be deciding their ambitions can be fulfilled on the other side of the fence. Like so many of his compatriots, Juan Jose left his home in Honduras to look for work. He didn't expect to find it here, in Tijuana.
At the beginning, it was planned to get across the border, but I realized how difficult it was and decided to stay here. And now I want to bring my wife and son here as well.
The arrival of so many migrants from Central America to Tijuana may have created a crisis, but it's also becoming an opportunity. both for local companies and the migrants themselves.
And where in the US are these components going to?
It's basically the whole States. I mean, it's everywhere.
Ossie Diaz is the director of Castagno, a company that's growing rapidly as Tijuana's economy expands.
Especially with the salary increases right now in California, a lot of US-based companies are thinking south. So they want to come to Mexico so they can start becoming competitive in a very globalized market that we have in place right now. So that is why now with these caravans coming from Central America are helping us in order to fill all those open positions that we have in place right now.
If the communities on either side of the border feel familiar to each other, there's a good reason. But beyond those three fences is Mexico, and this is California in the United States. But until the 1840s, California was part of Mexico, as was Texas, Nevada, Arizona, and New Mexico. The US defeated the Mexicans in battle and then drew up a treaty taking all these lands. The Mexicans did receive $15 million in compensation, but even today, that's the equivalent of less than $500,000. It's something many Americans fail to acknowledge. Historians talk of a collective amnesia.
Earlier, not only an amnesia, but a willful ignorance about this history, right? There's an attempt to try to erase and not grapple with that history, right? And not recognize that, you know, even the name San Isidro, San Diego, Los Angeles, I mean, these all speak to this once being, on the one hand, you know, for sometimes Spanish colonial territory, but then also Mexican territory. But yeah, there's no sense of history, right? They want to willfully ignore that reality.
But the modern-day reality is two distinct nations separated by a physical border.
Un poquito más de volumen. Buenas tardes y bienvenidos. Good afternoon and welcome to Friendship Park. My name is John Fanistil, pastor of the Border Church here in the United States. On the Mexican side is my colleague Guillermo Navarrete and the Border Church Mexico team.
On the Tijuana side of that border, a prayer service.
All are welcome to participate or observe. Y voy a pedir que Guillermo nos abra en oración. I'm going to ask that Pastor Guillermo open us with a prayer.
Father John Fanistil is giving his sermon from the dead zone in between the two countries.
At the end of the U.S.-Mexico War, and ever since that time, people of goodwill have been gathering at this location. So we are gathered on the shoulders of generations of people who have gathered here in a spirit of friendship.
Friends and relatives talk to each other through the barrier and touch fingers.
It's a way for us to continue to motivate the families that have been separated by unjust immigration laws to continue to have faith in God, to one day be able to bring down these walls that separate families. To us, this is sacred ground, and the days that families can be a family again is very precious to us.
It's very bad. God did not make walls. He did not make divisions. He created the earth for people to migrate, and it's very sad to see.
Over on the US side of the fence, Father John reflects on his cross-border service.
It's very common to see people bringing their small children to introduce them to their grandparents through the wall. I've seen lovers make out through the wall. I've seen people say goodbye to their dying loved ones through the wall. You know, a one-time, last chance visit before they return to their homes. And so those experiences, while often bitter, also have a sweet quality to them. And we hear from people who visit the park that they're very grateful and they're very pleased after perhaps having chatted, you know, on an iPhone for years and years, to actually be able to whisper into each other's ears and touch fingers and greet each other intimately that way. It means the world to the folks who visit the park.
The southern border has become America's political battleground, and the physical barrier along it, a potent symbol
of an increasingly divided nation.
I think it's important for us to constantly remind ourselves this is not normal, you know, and in the case of the wall itself, especially where the metal wall goes into the ocean, the combination of the ocean water, the sun, the air, the elements themselves have time and time again rusted away this wall. What else but the most basic life's elements, water, air, and sun, to show the unnaturalness of this boundary.